The first thing Emma said when she found me at the hometown fair after 17 years was not hello. It was, "Why did you never answer my letter?" And in that single sentence, the noise of the carnival seemed to disappear. The Ferris wheel kept turning above us, children kept laughing near the cotton candy stand, and somewhere behind me a country band continued playing an old song, but I could hear only the question I had spent nearly 2 decades trying not to remember. My name is Daniel, and I grew up in a small town where everybody knew everybody's business. In high school, I was the quiet kid who spent lunch periods beneath the old oak tree behind the gym, pretending to read while secretly watching Emma Carter cross the courtyard. Emma was the kind of person who made ordinary places feel brighter. She remembered the cafeteria worker's birthday, helped freshmen find their classrooms, and once stayed after school for 3 hours to help a lonely classmate finish a science project. I never told her how much I admired her. I was 16, awkward, terrified of rejection, and convinced that someone like Emma could never possibly choose someone like me. Then, during our final year, something changed. We began walking home together. We studied at the library. We shared jokes nobody else understood. There were moments when our hands nearly touched and neither of us moved away. I thought maybe, just maybe, she felt the same way. But life had a cruel habit of placing fear where courage should have been. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the possibility that one small act can change a person's life, please take a moment to like this story, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel for more heart-touching stories. The week before graduation, Emma told me she had something important to give me. I remember standing outside the school gates that afternoon, watching the sun turn the windows golden. But before she arrived, my father called. My mother had collapsed at work, and the doctors had discovered that she needed immediate treatment. Overnight, my plans changed. College became impossible. I took a job at a mechanic's shop in the next town, and our family began a long struggle of hospital visits, bills, borrowed money, and sleepless nights. Emma tried to reach me. At least, I later learned that she did. She called our house once, but I was at the hospital. She left something with a neighbor. Somehow, I never received it. Then graduation came, and she left town for college. I assumed she had moved on. But the truth was that I was too ashamed to ask. Years passed. My mother recovered slowly, but she never returned to her old health. My father eventually passed away. I became the person everyone called when their car broke down, their heater stopped working, or they needed help fixing something they couldn't afford to replace. I built a modest life, but I never built the family I once imagined. Sometimes, late at night, I wondered what might have happened if I had simply told Emma how I felt. Then came the hometown fair. Every August, our town held the same festival. Food trucks lined the main street, children played games, local musicians performed, and the old Ferris wheel rose above the rooftops like a giant clock measuring the years. I almost didn't go that evening. I had been working all day and wanted nothing more than to go home. But my neighbor's little daughter, Lily, begged me to take her. She had lost her father the previous year, and I had become something of an unofficial uncle to her. So I agreed. We were standing near the ring toss booth when I heard someone behind me say my name. Not the way strangers say it. The way someone says it when they have carried it in their heart. I turned around. Emma was standing there. For a moment, I didn't recognize the woman she had become, but I recognized her eyes immediately. She was older, of course. So was I. There were faint lines around her eyes and a few strands of silver in her dark hair. But when she smiled, I was 16 again, standing beneath the school tree, wondering if she might like me. She looked at me for several seconds before walking closer. Then she asked the question that shattered 17 years of silence. Why had I never answered her letter? I couldn't speak. Lily looked between us, sensing something important had happened. Emma noticed the confusion on my face and reached into her purse. From inside, she pulled a small envelope, worn at the edges and yellowed with age. My name was written across the front. Daniel. My hands began to shake. She explained that she had written the letter after our last day of school. She had told me everything she had been too afraid to say aloud. She told me she loved me. She told me she didn't care whether I went to college or stayed in town. She only wanted to know if there was a future for us. She had waited for my answer. When none came, she assumed I had rejected her. I stared at the envelope as memories crashed over me. My mother's hospital room. My father's exhausted face. The bills stacked on our kitchen table. The phone calls I never returned because I was too overwhelmed to understand how much my life had changed. Then Emma told me something I never expected. She had come back to town several times over the years. She had asked about me. She had even stopped by the mechanic shop once, but I had been working at another location that day. Life had kept missing us by inches. I finally told her the truth. I told her I had never received the letter. I told her I had loved her, too. I admitted that I had been scared and that, after everything happened with my family, I convinced myself that people like Emma deserved better than the broken life I had. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and said that was the saddest thing she had ever heard. Because she had never wanted a perfect life. She had wanted ours. For a few seconds, neither of us said anything. Then Lily tugged my sleeve and asked if Emma was my old friend. I looked at Emma. She smiled through her tears and said yes. An old friend. But neither of us believed that was the whole truth. We walked through the fair together that evening. We bought lemonade and shared a funnel cake. We watched the Ferris wheel lights flicker against the darkening sky. We talked about everything we had missed, her years in the city, my life caring for my mother, the people we had lost, the dreams we had abandoned, and the small joys that had somehow kept us moving. At the Ferris wheel, Emma handed me the letter again. She told me she didn't want me to read it there. She wanted me to take it home. That night, sitting alone at my kitchen table, I finally opened it. The handwriting was unmistakably hers. The letter wasn't angry. It wasn't bitter. It was full of hope. She had written that she believed life might separate us for a while, but she hoped we would find our way back someday. At the bottom, she had written one sentence that broke me. If you ever feel like you missed your chance, remember that some doors don't close. They just wait for us to become brave enough to open them. I cried harder than I had cried in years. Not because I had lost 17 years. But because I realized I still had a chance to stop losing the years ahead. The next morning, I went to Emma's old family home. She was sitting on the porch, drinking coffee. When she saw me, she didn't ask why I had come. She already knew. I told her I couldn't change the past. I couldn't make the letter arrive. I couldn't give our younger selves the years they deserved. But I could stop being afraid. I could start now. Emma smiled. And then she reached for my hand. It wasn't a dramatic movie moment. There were no fireworks. No orchestra suddenly playing in the background. Just two people sitting on an old porch in a small town, finally holding the hands they had almost touched 17 years earlier. Over the next few months, we didn't rush anything. We learned each other again. We discovered that the people we had become were different from the teenagers we remembered. We had scars, responsibilities, disappointments, and years behind us. But we also had something our younger selves didn't understand. Perspective. We knew how fragile life was. We knew how quickly people could disappear. We knew that love wasn't about finding someone without problems. It was about finding someone whose problems you were willing to stand beside. 1 year later, we returned to the same hometown fair. The Ferris wheel was still there. The same lights glowed over the town. The same music played somewhere in the distance. But this time, Emma was holding my hand. She looked at me and laughed, saying she had waited 17 years for an answer. I told her I was sorry it had taken me so long. Then I gave her the only answer that mattered. I was ready. Not to rewrite our past, but to live whatever future we still had. And sometimes, that's what a second chance really is. It isn't getting your old life back. It's being brave enough to build a new one with someone who never stopped believing that you were worth finding. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe so these stories can reach more people who need a little hope. And before you leave, comment, "I believe in second chances," if you believe that sometimes the right people can find their way back to each other, even after years of silence. Because somewhere out there, someone may still be waiting for an answer to a letter they thought you never cared enough to read. And maybe, just maybe, it's not too late to open the door. Sometimes love doesn't disappear. Sometimes it simply waits. The end.